When I was really young, and just for clarification, I'm not talking about last year, okay? When I was really young, like when I was in elementary school, I used to play a game with my friends called King of the Hill. It's also known as King of the Castle. You might be familiar with that, or at least with the rhyme. I'm the king of the castle, and you're the dirty rascal, right? And in this game, one person stands on the top of the hill, and they're the king. And the object of the other people is to try and knock this person off the hill. And so the advantage of being on the top is that you've got leverage over the people who are trying to climb up. But the disadvantage, of course, is that there's more of them than there are of you. And the second thing is they're going to do whatever they possibly can to knock you off. Like, cheap shots are encouraged. So that's a great game for kids to play. The only problem is that it kind of mirrors real life in far too many ways. Deacon Art, he likes to say that we're in a rat race, and sometimes the rats are winning. So, after hearing Deacon Art share this more than once, I actually looked up what the definition of a rat race is. And this is what I found, Deacon Art. An endless, self-defeating, or pointless pursuit. Doesn't sound really great. And I think the rat race can take many forms, and one of the forms it can take is this king of the hill thing. Look at our politics. The leader's own party is only too eager to get knives out when things don't go very well, right? Or look at entertainment. There's two great moments: when a star is born and when something can be exposed about them and that star can be hurled right back to earth. Look at business. How many businesses are more focused on crushing their competition rather than innovating new products? I wish I could stop there, and I will, but I could just keep going. Life seems to be an endless series of these king of the hill kind of games. And so let me ask you a question. Have you been sucked into these kind of games before yourselves? I know I have. It's the kind of thing where you want to be the best, not just because you want to win something like a card game, which you know is temporary, or getting better at whatever it is, or truly making a difference. It's because you can't stand not coming out on top. We can get sucked into these kinds of things. Father Eve and I were watching an episode of Corner Gas the other day, which, if you don't know, takes place in his home and native land of Saskatchewan. And two of the main characters had this crazy competition about getting the smallest cell phone, but the punchline was this little town didn't even get cell reception. It was pointless. It was meaningless. This is what I'm talking about. Like, no one actually could win in the end. And so even if we become the CEO or the top athlete or a famous celebrity or prime minister or even just champion of the Sackville Bowling League, it's temporary. Someone was there before us, and someone's going to be there after us. If the business is innovating today, it could be bankrupt tomorrow. If we're on top today, we could be at the bottom tomorrow. And look, I'm not saying don't try hard. That's the last thing I'm trying to say here. Really. There's nothing wrong with any of these pursuits. It's just that when our lives become entirely about these things, about getting ahead and staying there, we can lose sight of some of the most important things, some of the most lasting things. In fact, some of the things that are eternal. So the real question is whether we're working primarily towards the things that will last and working as hard at them as we do with these other kinds of things, and hopefully harder. And this is what I think Pilate was missing as he interacted with Jesus in the gospel. And it's what sometimes, quite frankly, we can miss as well. Pilate was thinking like an earthly ruler. He was thinking of King of the Hill. That's his world. Rome is actually built on 7 hills, so he had a visual to go with the program. What do kings do? They get more gold, they get more stuff, they expand their kingdom, they try to conquer other kingdoms while preventing themselves from being conquered. And again, it's not that they can't be virtuous, and they've got a job to do. But there's more to life than that. And so in the gospel, here's this guy before Pilate with nothing to his name. He didn't look like an earthly king. And so Pilate asks him, maybe with a smirk, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus, of course, replies that, well, his kingdom is not of this world. Kind of confirming Pilate's question, but maybe also astonishing him. And so he asks Jesus, "So you are a king?" And maybe there's some irony in that Pilate sends our king to a hill to die. The hill of Golgotha. In a certain sense, Jesus is the king of the hill. Everything they tried to throw at him, all the cheap shots, they failed. Jesus won the victory over sin and death forever. We hear today, he reigns forever, he has dominion over all, and his kingship will never be destroyed. We celebrate that today. And as we do, we need to keep in mind the words of Jesus that his kingdom is not of this world. Because so many people in the time of Jesus, and right up to our own time, either rejected him because he didn't seem to be the kind of king that they wanted, or tried to co-opt him to their own purposes. They tried to turn the kingdom of God into something less. Something less. Something earthy, and not in the good sense of that term. Something that's about us rather than about God. And so we're reminded that we're part of his kingdom, and that building his kingdom is so much more important than anything else. Certainly more than the king of the hill battles that have been going on for millennia. The kingdom of God is not a place like a hill. It's a state of grace. It exists to its fullest wherever and whenever the will of God is done. Wherever peace and justice and mercy and love triumph. Where the good news of the gospel is announced. Where the sick are cared for. Where the poor are provided for. Where the lowly are lifted up. It exists in perfection in heaven, and it exists in imperfection here on earth. But each of us, as members of that kingdom, can do our part to see it grow and expand. And it does so from person to person. And so it requires of us that heavenly perspective to, in fact, look at that hill on which Jesus died, and the tomb in which he was placed, and the stone that was rolled away, and our resurrected Lord who has conquered sin and death, and to bend our knee. And to repeat that oft-repeated scriptural phrase, Jesus is Lord. He's the Lord, and he's my Lord. He's the King, and he's my King. I acknowledge his dominion in and over my life, and I choose to love and serve him all the days of my life. The spreading of the kingdom of God starts with our own accepting of the kingdom and the king for ourselves, and renewing that commitment to king and kingdom every day. And then spreading that kingdom in word and action as much as we possibly can. And believing and seeing that as we do that, lives are transforming one person at a time. And here's the key. Even when we don't always see it. The time you spend in prayer matters. Even if you don't feel like it does, even if you're not feeling it. The can of cranberry sauce that goes to someone in need through Beacon House matters, even if you never meet that person here on this earth. Sharing with your grandkid or your friend what faith in Jesus has meant to you over the years matters, even if the initial response is lack of interest. That's the eternal perspective. That God can bring things to good in His time, even when we can't see it. Because it's His kingdom, not ours. And we've made our efforts to expand it. Efforts that go beyond what we can see, feel, touch. And there will come a time when everyone will see. That is what our second reading tells us. Every eye will see Him, even those who pierced Him. Until that time, the work of the kingdom has been given to us, the church, who believe and acknowledge that Jesus Christ is King.